Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Justin, and this is Horsepower Obsessed. Today, we're going to talk about the spy shots of the C8 Corvette Z06 and ZR1 that were recently taken in Ohio. We're also going to get to hear that glorious flat plane crank exhaust sound from the Z06, but I also have some extra information that hasn't been discussed anywhere. I talked to someone who was actually there taking pictures of the car, and they have information that has not been talked about yet. So let's get right into it. All right, guys, so we have an insane amount of information to cover in today's video, but we're going to start with where I got the majority of the information, and that is from the CorvetteBlogger.com and the MidEngineCorvetteForum.com. These two websites are, of course, a wealth of knowledge for any Corvette owner, so if you guys are looking for information like this on a daily basis, you're definitely going to want to check out these two websites. They will keep you as up to date as possible, but because this information is so freaking exciting, I wanted to make a video and tell you guys all about it. I just got off the phone with someone who was actually there taking pictures of the car, and I have some information and some details that no one has leaked or showed yet. This particular person was able to get a little bit closer to the car than anybody else, and yeah, there's some awesome information about these Z06's that you guys are going to love to hear. Moving right on to the actual information though, like I said, the CorvetteBlogger.com posted this, but the spy shots and video were taken by a man named David Wessel. So a huge thank you to David for posting these up for all of us to see. That is absolutely awesome, and you can tell this is a huge car guy. If you go to these lengths to get into arm's reach of these cars, then you know you're a car guy. The article starts out by saying it's been a couple months since we've seen the Corvette engineering team testing the future variants of the C8 Corvette. Today, we're pleased to share these exclusive videos and photos of the wide-body C8s in Ohio. Now, for those of you who don't know, Dave Wessel, who took these photos, is also one of the first ones to grab some shots of the C7 Corvette ZR1 convertible a couple years ago. So this guy knows a thing or two about his cars, and he's obviously always in the right place at the right time. Now, what we're seeing in these photos here, other than a bunch of C8 Corvette test mules, is a couple different variants. So what we have here is likely a Z06, a Z07, and possibly even a ZR1. Now, you guys know a lot of the earlier spy shots were showing some of the cars we thought to be a Z06 with 4 exhaust tips coming out the back in the center. That has kind of been talked about, and a lot of people are thinking and speculating that the 4 exhaust tips in the center are actually indicating that it is a ZR1, because the 2 outside tips are likely the wastegates of the twin turbos. Now, if you remember months ago, we were talking about the fact that the Z06 was constantly being flip-flopped between being a naturally aspirated engine and being a twin turbocharged engine because of all the different spy shots indicating different things. So the idea that one of these is actually the ZR1 kind of makes sense, so I am totally on board with that. And the fact that the outside tips of the exhaust are always consistently smaller tells me that they're probably not actually exhaust tips, and they very likely are some sort of wastegates. Before we continue, I just wanted to mention the sponsor of today's video, and that is going to be Hyperion. So this is a case that you can actually open up and put your key into, and it will block any RFID signals from being transmitted. What that means is it will block the connection between the key and your car, so nobody can steal the code from your key and steal your car. So with the key for the C8 out, we can go ahead and pop it right into this case here and put the top on. And while it's in here, the car will not start. So if we press the start button, it's going to pop up on the dash there and tell us there's no key found. So very interesting stuff here. I will put a link down in the description below, guys. If you are interested in any of this kind of security for yourself, be sure to check it out. And I'll even put a code down there for you guys to save some money on one. Now, in this case, these spy shots are showing the way that GM is trying to hide that fact. So it almost seems like they're watching these videos and they're hearing a lot of the speculation, and they started to realize we're getting a little too close to them. So they started to make the outside tip to cover all of the actual exhaust tips. They made all of those tips the same size. That way you couldn't really see from a distance that the 2 outside ones were much smaller. Now, with all that said, what we're also seeing is a much more finished off rear diffuser. So something that is clearly showing this car, or one of the variants at least, is going to have a center exiting exhaust. We have a really nice finished bezel around it, and the center part of the entire diffuser almost looks ready to go. Now, in the picture, you can also see on the left and right hand side where where the aluminum heat shielding is still present, just like it is on the C8 base model, because they literally just took those tips and moved them into the center. So this is not a completely finished diffuser by any means, but it is much more finished than it has been in the past. Now, apparently when one of the C8 Corvettes was unloaded off of the truck, David, who is the photographer here, was able to see that it was wearing an experimental EX VIN. Basically, it is an M50 VIN, and that corresponds to a pre-production 2021 model year car. For those of you who don't know what the pre-production cars are, it's basically the test vehicle. So when the C8 Corvette was spotted running around before it was officially announced, they had somewhere around 100 of those cars out in the US constantly being tested at any given time. So basically these cars were obviously built on a production line just like your current C8 Corvette is, but it was done in a pre-production way, meaning it was just for testing. So in this case, the M50 actually designates this car as a pre-production car, meaning it is built to be tested. Now, this does say that it is a pre-production 2021 model year car, but best case scenario, it comes out in 2022, and I have been told by my source that actually got photographs of the car up close that he can guarantee this is going to be a 2023 model year car. So those of you out there waiting patiently for your Corvette Z06, it's going to be a little bit longer of a wait than normal, I think, based on what I'm being told. Now, he was able to tell me that that was the case based on some different computer systems in the car. He was able to see everything up close enough to tell me it was going to be a 2023. Now, I have talked about the fact that I think this is going to be a 2023 for a while now, and that was just my opinion based on the fact that GM seems to be more on a hybrid style car push lately, so I really thought we'd get the E-Ray first and then the Z06, but we may not get anything until 2023, and the Z06 still might be first. Moving on with these pictures though, the Corvette blogger goes on to say that we have previously seen the performance variants of the C8 Corvette being benchmarked against two of the finest sports cars in the world, the Ferrari 458 and the Porsche 911 GT2 RS. As the ZR1 has been rumored to make around 800 horsepower from a twin-turbo LT7 engine, it makes more sense to benchmark it against the 700 horsepower twin-turbo GT2, while the naturally aspirated Ferrari is more closely matched with the high-revving flat-plane crank of the Corvette Z06, which is now rumored to have around 617 horsepower based on the latest leaks. And that makes total sense, guys, because we've been talking about the C8 Z06 for about a year and a half now, and every time I have read any reports of horsepower, it's always between 600 and 650. So somewhere around 617 sounds like an exact perfect number to me. I would imagine GM will do some tuning with that and probably land at a 625 number or right around there if I had to guess. Now, the next bit of information for the C8 Corvette Z06 and ZR1s is the tire size. We have talked about the rear tire size before. It was confirmed to be a 345 size rear tire, and it was confirmed to wear this Sport Cup 2Rs on the Z06/Z07 version. On the Z06 base, it's much more likely that it's going to have the Pilot Sport 4Ss, but regardless, we now have a front tire size as well. So the rears are 345s and the front are going to be 275s. Now that is still insanely massive in the rear, and it's only a little bit bigger in the front. So we're going from the typical 245 in the front to a 275, and in the rear we're going from the 305s all the way up to 345s. So we're gaining 40 series in the rear and 30 in the front to still maintain that staggered tire approach. Now with the Z07 or the ZR1 coming with the Sport Cup 2R compound tires, you can guarantee this thing is going to absolutely decimate on the track. That tire is never going to lose grip. Now, like I said earlier, David did also get video of all these cars driving by so we can hear the beautiful exhaust on all of them. But in the video, the Corvettes are all started up and then David positions himself so that each car drives past his location. And we can see that the Z06, which is again identified with the corner mounted exhaust, not the center, has no rear spoiler, and like the base Stingrays, the rear end is tapered downward. As the ZR1s drive by, it appears they have some sort of extended lip spoiler along the curved rear deck. That could be a deception, which GM is really good at, or it could be hinting at the fact that specific aerodynamics are going to be on the ZR1's rear deck. The Corvette blogger goes on to say that seeing the development team with prototypes out and about always lifts our spirits, and in conjunction with the latest rumor that Chevy may be starting to build beta versions of the C8 Corvette Z06 on the assembly line, has us again thinking the Z06 could arrive sometime during the 2022 model year. Now again guys, I have kind of an inside source here telling me that these are going to be a 2023. That could literally be January of 2023, so we're not necessarily talking about a late 2023 arrival, but it's very unlikely to be a 2022 based on the source that I'm getting information from. Now that's pretty much it for the Corvette blogger article, but there's a lot more information to cover. So for those of you who don't know, the Corvette plant is likely to be building these Corvette Z06 test cars as we speak. So basically they are building these cars, getting them ready for testing, and we're going to be seeing them out there a lot more often. Now what that tells me is we're right around the same time frame we were when we first started seeing the base C8 Corvettes out and about. There was about 100 of them out there, and it was about a year to a year and a half later that we actually got an official announcement about the C8. So I really feel like that's what's happening here with the Z06. We're about a year to a year and a half away from an official announcement, which would put us really close to a 2023 delivery date, or at least a very late 2022 delivery date. Either way you cut it, we're still well over a year away from seeing this car officially, but we're going to be seeing these things spy-shotted a lot more often. Now, what I was talking about in the beginning is I actually have a inside source here that was actually at this photo location. So other than David taking the photos, this person was also present and got to see a lot more of the car up close and personal. And he told me that basically it is guaranteed to be a 2023 based on the computer information that he was able to see. It is going to be extremely lightweight, because there is a very good chance that a lot of the car is going to be built out of magnesium, which is typical for a Z06. With the flat plane crank engine, naturally aspirated, producing around 617 horsepower, a lot of people believe that that's almost quote-unquote underpowered. And that would only matter if the car also still weighs the same amount that the base C8 does. Now, if this car is actually using a lot more magnesium parts, you're talking about 300 to 400 pounds less than what the base C8 weighs. Then all of a sudden, the 617 horsepower sounds a lot better with a 31 to 3,200 pound curb weight. Again, a lot of this stuff makes sense to me, which is why I'm taking this person on their word, but I'm supposedly going to see some information on this later, and if I do, you guys will be the first to hear more about it. Now, we've seen some other spy shots showing that the Z06 with the Z07 package is also likely to come with some sort of carbon ceramic rotors, again, reducing unsprung weight. Just like previous Z06s in the past, the C8 Z06 looks to do the same with reducing weight and focusing less on turbos and superchargers to maintain a gigantic high horsepower number. Like I said, guys, more information on that to come. Once I meet up with this person, we're going to get some video and some pictures to kind of correspond with what I'm telling you, but just know there is more to the Z06 than any of us know at this point. With all that stuff out of the way, guys, let's jump into the video that David Wessel recorded for us so we can all hear the glorious sounds that the new performance variants of the C8 Corvette are going to make. Now, like I said, the Z06s are the flat plane cranks. You can clearly tell those ones, they have a much different sound than the typical base C8 does, but they still do have the side exiting exhausts, whereas the ZR1s are all center exiting, and they definitely sound a little bit different. Now, also keep in mind, GM is very likely disguising the exhaust notes on all of these cars to try to keep people away from hearing what these things are all about. We also have another video from Ken Morrison, who was also right there with David Wessel, so he also uploaded this to the CorvetteBlogger.com, but I wanted to also include this because he shows one of the Corvettes leaving from the gas station, and it is very clearly a different sounding Corvette than the C8 Corvette base model. So check these out. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and I will catch you guys in the next upload. it.